What's up, family? It's your homie Two Chef Coupe, and I'm coming at you with a recipe video that is sure to make your head spin. For this episode, we're working this beautiful beef round roast from Vermont Wagyu. We're working it over the course of 3 days. In this episode, I'm going to demonstrate techniques such as searing, smoking, sous vide, stock making. We're making a bone stock, sauce making. But the results are worth it. On top of that, in the name of food resilience, we're wasting nothing. And I'm also going to talk about a couple different meals that you can make with just this one roast. It doesn't have to be a one and done meal where you're eating sloppy joes for 4 days. So if you're interested in leveling up your kitchen and experiencing the joy of full-blooded Wagyu, double tap and watch on. Okay, so right here we have beautiful beef marrow bones from Vermont Wagyu. I've just lightly drizzled them with some oil. And then I have these vegetables. I have some onion and some ginger that's been cut, oiled, and lightly seasoned. I'm just gonna dump that here as well. And I'm just gonna throw this whole set under the broiler, under a gas flame broiler, and just let it roast for a little bit. Right here we have our beautiful round roast from Vermont Wagyu. Usually this is a leaner part of the cow, but since we're dealing with full-blooded Wagyu beef, we still have some nice marbling running through. Not as much as some of the other Vermont Wagyu cuts, but this is definitely still an exciting thing to cook. Here I have a paste that I made last night. You can use any kind of paste you want. If you have even if it's a store-bought fancy paste that you really enjoy, really feel free to express yourself when you're making this. In this paste I have some herbs, I have some hot pepper, some raw sugar, some really nice garlic, some oil, and a splash of vinegar. So now I've put our roast on top of this rack, on top of a plate. I'm going to put it in the fridge to air dry. So these are vegetables after about 10 minutes under the broiler. I just took them out, threw on a cinnamon stick, a few star anise pods, and I'm throwing them back under for a couple more minutes. Alright y'all, so our roasted veg and bones are out. It's very important that you let this cool down a little bit. Next step is just dump them into a pot. I'm going to cover it with some cold water. So this is our stock right here, our bones, our spices, our veggie covered with water. I'm just putting it on a high flame. I'm going to cover it until it comes to a simmer or a boil, and then I'm going to uncover it and just let it simmer. And this is our beef broth. I might let this run for 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours maybe, depending on where my broth level is. I just wanted to show you real quick why I mentioned that it was important that your vegetables were cold and that you use cold water, is so that these impurities can rise to the surface. So the idea is that you're meant to skim off all this little white foam, little white impurities, and you could just kind of dump them somewhere in a bowl. Sometimes what I like to do is I use the back of my spoon to kind of drag and pull the white foam into one spot, and then it makes it easier to kind of skim off. Okay, so now we're on day 2. First thing I'm doing is I'm heating up a pan here. I have some sliced red onion. We're gonna caramelize these onions. I have some infused avocado oil that has some thyme, sage, and garlic in it. I'm gonna add that to the pan. And I'm actually gonna use this little piece of butter as well. This is the stock that we made yesterday. After I simmered it for 5 or 6 hours, I drained it out and just put it in this bowl. You can see we have a nice layer of fat on top. I'm gonna take it and actually try to store it in this jar. So I'm switching up my method. I'm gonna use this bowl since I have these nice big pieces. And this is something you definitely should store, reuse for something else. This is good seasoned beef fat, Wagyu beef fat at that. And now as you see, we have our beautiful stock here. You can taste it, season it to your liking, and we're going to use that a little later once our onions are ready. My butter is mostly melted, so I'm going to throw in my onions. So my heat is on a 3, low heat. I'm going to stir to make sure that all the onions are coated. I'm going to give it a sprinkling of some sea salt. Alright, so it's been about a little bit over an hour. Our onions have caramelized. We see that we have a nice color and texture going on here. So I'm going to actually transfer them out of this pot into another pot for our next step. So now we have our caramelized onions in a new pot. These are super sweet, super rich, and will be a great addition to this base that we're making. The next step is I'm going to add some wine. This is a Cabernet Sauvignon from South Africa, a 2016. I'm going to turn my heat on high. I'm going to take this opportunity to shout out Golden Brown Delicious. If you haven't, follow them on Instagram. They do like Wine Down Wednesdays where they go over different types of wine every Wednesday. So if that's something you've been trying to improve on, definitely check them out. And they do it with swag. All right, so our wine has reduced a little bit. It's looking nice and comfortable. Next thing, I'm adding a cup of the Wagyu beef broth. Turn my heat up a little higher, and I'm gonna let that reduce. So our next step is we're gonna set up our stovetop smoker. So I have this cast iron Dutch oven. I've set aluminum foil at the bottom and just poured some alder wood chips on top. I'm turning on my heat right now to about a medium high, and I'm just gonna cover this. So this is my roast that's dried out for about 24 hours now. The beef round roast with the paste on it. I'm just gonna switch it to a different grilling rack that I'm gonna put inside my smoker. So our pot is starting to smoke. You can see it coming out the sides. I actually added some hickory inside as well because I like that smell. So this is our roast that I put on a little grilling rack. I'm just putting it right inside, cover it. Once again, make sure your lid is secure. If you want, you can use aluminum foil to put around the sides and crimp your lid. You can turn your heat down at this point so your wood doesn't burn too fast. I'm gonna let this smoke for about I'm hoping for about 20 minutes and it'll look good. That's not enough to cook the roast. I'm just trying to impart flavor. I'm not even trying to like make it crispy or anything. I'm just trying to get some smoky flavor inside of this. So we'll come back and check it out. All right, so this is our wine and broth and onions that have reduced. I'm just gonna strain out the caramelized onions. And I'm just gonna press through a strainer to make sure I'm getting all my liquids out. And this paste, this onion, I'm not gonna throw out. This is something you can use in, anything, a stir fry, a sauce, maybe even make a salad dressing if you really wanted to. So definitely this is something that's not going to waste. But I'm just pushing through, making sure I get all the juices out. And this is what we have, nice, rich, meaty, acidic broth. All right, some time has passed by, about 30 minutes. Opening up our smoker, we see that our meat in here is nice and smoky. Just gonna take it out. And I'm putting it to cool on this plate. So it looks really nice. So I'm just gonna let this cool down a little bit before I go to the next step. So my roast is cooled down a little bit. Our next step is that we're gonna sous vide it. I'm taking it out, putting it into this bag. So in the bag, I'm also gonna put 2 sprigs of fresh rosemary. I'm gonna try to get one in there on the bottom. And I'm gonna pour in our red wine, caramelized onion, and beef broth. And I'm just gonna try to squeeze most of my air out the bag while leaving a little hole. So I have a sous vide water bath going on here. This is going at 131.5 degrees Fahrenheit. I have my bag with the roast that I've squeezed out most of the air out of. And I'm going to use the water displacement method here, basically meaning I'm going to dump the rest of my bag underneath the water until all the air comes out. And then when my air comes out, I can close the seal on my bag. And then I'm just going to use clips and clip the bag to the side of my container. I'm making sure that my seal line is above the water line in the pot. So as you can see here, I have the water bath going, and I have my meat in here that is below the water line. I'm looking to sous vide this for 24 hours, so I'm actually going to cover the top with plastic wrap so that the water doesn't evaporate. So here is my sous vide bath that has been wrapped up. I did about 2 layers of plastic wrap, and you'll notice that it'll stick to the sides of the pot since the pot is a little warm. So yeah, it's not too bad to put on, and this is a nice way of making sure that not too much. You'll probably get some evaporation, but definitely not as much as if this was uncovered. So especially for a cook time of 24, maybe even 36 hours, this is a good way to do it without spending a lot of money on sous vide supplies. Okay, y'all, so it's been almost 24 hours. We're gonna check our meat. Give it a smell. Whew, smells excellent. First thing is I'm gonna drain it. So this jus right here, I'm gonna throw it on the back. So I have a clean, very clean kitchen towel. So I'm just drying off the beef because now I'm going to sear it. And just before we sear it, just check out this beef for a moment. Like, it just looks so great. This is something you can slice and serve with a sauce. I just want to give it a little bit of crust. Today, coincidentally, I tasted some barrel smoked chicken that someone gave me, and it's very similar to this smoky flavor because remember we smoked it over 2 different types of wood. So I'm super happy to smell this twice in one day from 2 different meats. So in the back, our broth has hit a simmer. So I'm just turning this to low. I'm not trying to reduce it too much. I'm just trying to get it to hit a boil. And I'm just gonna throw in some ketchup actually to thicken it up. Whisk, whisk, whisk. And if you don't have ketchup, you can use cornstarch, you can use butter and flour, you can make a roux. There's a few different things you could use to thicken up a sauce. I just threw in some avocado oil. I like to use a high heat oil that doesn't burn as easily. I've glazed the bottom of my pan and then some. And I'm keeping a close eye on this sauce, especially now that it's thick. I have ketchup in it. If it boils too much, it's gonna pop all over. So keep it on super low. Just to give you an idea of the consistency. It's looking good. Tastes great. Tastes like a real classic barbecue sauce. So my oil in my pan is good to go. I'm gonna drop in my beef. Since it's already cooked, I'm just doing 15 seconds on each side. I do not wanna overcook my meat. And I'm actually counting in my head 15 seconds for each side. "15 seconds, I turn. All right. So my beef was on there about 1 minute. So check out this piece of Wagyu beef round. Looking beautiful. We don't need to rest it since it was sous vide and just briefly seared. I'm so excited at how soft this feels and how nice it looks on the outside. I don't want to cut it. All right, yo. You can cut this beef however you want. I'm going to try to demonstrate 3 different types of cuts that you can do here. All right, y'all, so I'm turning up this beef so you can see the cut side. We have this wonderful medium rare center. You can see when I poke my finger in, the indent kind of holds for a little bit. That's what we want for this temperature of beef, so we didn't overcook the inside. You can turn these pieces into strips. These strips you can use for stir fry, you can use for spring rolls. I'll probably be repurposing some of these into spring rolls. What you also can do is you can cube up the beef. If you want to cube it up, cut a little piece. Stack them. Just once again showing you the different cuts. Real haphazard cuts to show you that you don't have to get crazy with it. So I have some slices here, I have some strips here, I have some cubes here, and here I have the rest of the roast. You can do like sandwiches, pastrami. It almost has that pastrami vibe because of the smokiness, but not too much. This has like the smokiness of a pastrami, the texture of a ribeye, the fattiness of Wagyu, and the affordability of a winner, because this is beef round, which is one of the more affordable cuts. So definitely check out this cut of beef on the Vermont Wagyu website, beef round. So much product. So it's not a recipe video unless I show you a plate. I'm gonna do a little snack plate here, something, you know, if you have visitors or you wanna do this as a little hors d'oeuvre. I gave my sauce one final whisk, then I took it off the heat. Remember that your sauce will thicken as it cools down. And if you want, you can strain out your sauce before you put in the ketchup. I wanted this rustic look, so I did not. So for this plate, I'm just gonna drop dots. Then with a clean spoon, I turn my dots into swoops. And you can always take a little rag and clear off any imperfections. From here, you can just drop your little cubes, for example. Just gonna finish it with a little bit of Maldon. Wagyu beef cubes with this homemade barbecue sauce, a little snack plate here. And just to re-go over what we did, we made a homemade paste that we covered the beef in. We let it sit overnight. The next day we smoked our beef over 2 different types of wood. Then we also made a bone broth stock. Then we sous vide our beef in that wine and bone broth stock for about 24 hours, and then afterwards we seared it while we reduced the stock and added some ketchup to turn it into a barbecue sauce. Super affordable cut of meat, and we have multiple different uses that we can do with this. So the Wagyu might seem like a high price tag at first, but when you take time with it and when you use it correctly, it could really yield a lot of dividends. Way better than this cut of beef round that was non-Wagyu or that was half-blooded Wagyu. So enjoy.